So since last year, a lot of people have been asking a very simple question. Is the Wicked cast okay? Mostly because of clips like this, where the film's leads, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, are constantly holding each other and crying. And I mean, on some level, that makes sense. They're currently in the second leg for a year-long press tour for a massive IP musical blockbuster, one that hinges on the relationship, believability, and chemistry between both of them. All eyes have been on both of them as it relates to the film and award season, and also their own personal drama and controversies. And given the fact that they're constantly in the spotlight and the world around them seems to be getting crazier as they're in it, it makes sense that this kind of thing can take quite the toll on your mind and on your body. But because we're seeing Cynthia and Ariana so much lately, a lot of folks have pointed out that they appear physically smaller, and from there have inferred things about their mental state or their overall health. It's a topic that is getting too big to ignore, especially in the quote-unquote Ozempic era. But despite the fact that these two are celebrities and their aesthetic is commodified and taken within the context of societal trends, it remains that weight and health are a private issue, often a taboo one for those who have struggled with it. So, what's the right way to discuss this issue without coming off like an insensitive asshole? Or should we even talk about it at all? So before we get started, we are going to be diving into issues surrounding eating disorder culture and body image, so if those topics make you a little bit uncomfortable, feel free to bounce. I won't be offended. Take care of yourself. I also want to give a quick shout out and thank you to two of my subscribers who you will see featured throughout this video, Brooke and Parker. Brooke is a registered nurse who has a background in caring for mental health and eating disorder patients. And Parker also has a mental health background and is currently in grad school for marriage and family therapy. The reason why I brought these two subscribers on today is because I think as a content creator, I know some things, but I don't know everything, and mental health, body image, eating disorders, not my field of expertise, and I think that there is a well of information out there from our communities that we can pull from to be better educated on a topic and speaking to an experience. And so today, these subscribers are going to teach me more about their perspective when it comes to misconceptions about eating disorders and body image culture, especially as it relates to the online world. Thank you so much again to Brooke and Parker for agreeing to be featured in this video. Thank you again to everybody who reached out to me. Also, I had so many people reaching out and wanting to talk about their experiences and their expertise. Thank you so much. I wish I could have included every single person in this video, but sincerely, thank you. We really have a great community with lots of wonderful people around here. What are some, I guess, like misconceptions that you think people have about it? What are some like taboos? What do you think people should avoid when talking to and about people who experience eating disorders?
So, a lot of people think that it's female only, it's emotional, and it's in their head. Guess what? It is in their head, correct, but the brain is such a strong organ. We forget at times that just because our brain is telling us something doesn't mean it's actually fact-based. A lot of people are not aware just how strong those eating disorder thoughts can really be. I've seen the effect on child and adult, female and male, just all of the logic being presented to them by both trained professionals, their family, literature, and their brain is just saying, nope, they're lying. We don't believe you.
I think there's this idea that, like, if somebody is being influenced to have an eating disorder or having tendencies of disordered eating, it has to be because the celebrity is promoting that. And that definitely does happen. But a lot of the time, it really can come from anywhere, especially with so much of it being like about dysmorphia. It almost doesn't matter what the celebrity looks like. It's if they look smaller than the teenager, adult person kind of transferring their feelings onto them, it becomes this conversation of, oh, they're promoting an eating disorder. And then from another side, it's like, oh my God, why don't I look like that? What can I do to achieve that? They put the onus on the celebrity when in actuality, just having somebody out there who is, known to lots of people is going to make people project onto them.
Before we talk about Ariana and Cynthia specifically, I want to discuss another story that has sort of reshaped the way we talk about celebrities' bodies online. A few years ago, actor Chadwick Boseman passed away after a battle with cancer. He was known for his role as T'Challa in Black Panther, and prior to his death, a lot of fans had taken notice of his body. He wasn't as strong as he used to be, and he was noticeably smaller. And of course, that is more related to overall health than it is a conscious decision about one's weight. But that didn't stop people from speculating anyway. And when it was revealed that he had passed away from cancer, it made a lot of people reevaluate how they talked about him, how they treated him when he was alive, reinforcing the idea that you don't really know somebody's struggle behind the scenes, even if they are a celebrity, even if they do have the access to the best healthcare that there is. You can't discern if something is cancer versus if it's an eating disorder, and whether the person is famous or not, you gotta ask whether or not that's really any of your business, and I think the Chadwick Boseman case really put that into perspective for a lot of people. And something that I've learned from my conversations with my subscribers here is that, taking the celebrity piece out of it, which we'll get back to in a moment, there are ways to approach concerns, generally speaking, about somebody's health in your life that can be more body neutral.
So for the people that are coming from like a genuine concern place, I don't want you to think that your efforts are useless or that you should feel bad for even feeling concerned. The thing is, like, those concerns are valid, and if you have concerns that your friend or family member is potentially engaging in behavior that's overall not healthy for them, their mind or their body, absolutely bring that forward, but bring it forward based on their behavior, their actions, their views, and what they're saying. You can bring up like, hey, I notice you're running 3 hours a day every night. If you notice changes in their eating patterns, like they're not eating with you, or it looks like they're playing around a lot, bring that to their attention one-to-one and just say, hey, like, I have noticed this. I am open in here to talk. I want to hear from you.
At the same time, though, and like I said before, we are currently living through the Ozempic era. Ozempic, if you are unfamiliar at this point, was invented as a way to manage diabetes, but it is now commonly prescribed as a weight loss tool. The problem, though, is that a lot of famous people are taking the drug to ascertain this level of thinness that we haven't seen in style since the early 2000s. And that's not me speculating. A lot of these famous people who have noticeably gotten thinner since, 2020, have admitted to doing this. There are some that don't. And furthermore, I'm not implying that the change in Ariana and Cynthia's appearance is because they're on Ozempic. But because Ozempic use has become so prevalent among famous and influential people, thinness has become the dominant aesthetic, as opposed to, say, an era like 2016, where having a thicker body type was the more dominant preference. And if you think it's insane that I'm talking about body types as if they're clothing trends, just look at Kim Kardashian, and I'm being totally serious. She is a marker for aesthetic trends and what is, quote, in and out, because the Kardashians' whole job and role in the modern day celebrity ecosystem is to reflect culture back at the people who consume it and shape it in real time. I think it's worth pointing out that Cynthia and Ariana, and even Michelle Yeoh to an extent, because people have pointed out that she looks a little bit different now than she did in the last press tour, these people don't exist in a vacuum, right? This conversation isn't coming out of nowhere. But I think there is a real opportunity here to try to parse out what arguments are helpful and productive as it relates to this topic, and what arguments are generally just unkind and not really productive. The first element that I want to discuss here is this sort of dehumanization conspiracy culture that we see in a lot of social media apps like TikTok. This tends to be the case when I cover a lot of like mainstream celebrity stories. I actually alluded to this in my last video that I did about Ariana, where I touched on the body image stuff lightly, but I didn't really go that deep in depth, mostly because I didn't want to bring attention to these kinds of videos and this kind of content that I'm about to play you. And the reason why I'm bringing attention to it now is because, one, I feel like since I made that video, it has somehow gotten more prevalent, because I think everybody is like somehow more conspiracy brained now than they were a few months ago. And also I need to give examples so you can see what I'm talking about, so we can point out the exact reasons why this kind of content is harmful and unproductive.
Everyone thinks it's weird that they keep crying, but what's scaring me is the way that they keep mirroring each other's body movements, sentences, words. It's just like really off-putting. Let me show you some examples, because as I was watching this, I'm just like, why are they doing this? Why are they acting like this? Are they on something? Did they go through something on the set? Have they spent so much time around each other that their souls have just merged?
Whatever is going on with Ariana Grande and Cynthia is definitely spiritual, because this is not normal. How do you go from looking like this to this? My theory is that these spirits are literally sucking the life out of Ariana Grande and Cynthia.
Okay, so these people are stupid as fuck, and there's a lot of them out there. Whatever's going on with Cynthia and Ariana, there are reasonable explanations for it if you use your brain like a fucking adult, but that's not interesting, that's not sexy, that won't get you thousands of views on TikTok, so what you have to do is put creepy music behind every dumb thought that comes out of your stupid mouth so that other people who don't know anything will find you interesting. These two did not go through some kind of mutual pagan Illuminati lesbian ritual and come out the other side mentally and physically incapable. What they're probably going through is much more human and much more relatable than that, whether it's chronic illness, fatigue, an eating disorder, some sort of trauma. But coming to terms with that fact is too ugly for you. It's too real. It might remind you of yourself or somebody you know, and wow, that's uncomfy. So you have to retreat to your made-up fantasy land where the cruelty is the point. Stop making disingenuous conspiracy content slop. Get good or shut the fuck up. Now, another nuanced and more complex aspect of this argument that I want to address here is that obviously, with everyday people in our lives who may be struggling with some form of eating disorder or, you know, some kind of like behavior that might not be diagnosed yet, right? It's generally helpful to remain body neutral as to not make somebody sort of spin out of control by pointing out something they might be insecure about. That is common decency and the way that we should approach interactions with most of our friends. But there's a little bit more of an added wrinkle here when we're talking about celebrities, because people have pointed out that it's really easy to just blanket this with don't talk about anyone's body ever. Don't talk about it ever. But you can argue when celebrities are the people we should not be talking about, there still is a layer of influence that they have over people who might be vulnerable to this kind of thing. And there's an argument here over whether or not celebrities who, you know, align their bodies with the trend cycle of the day need to be held accountable for that because of the way that they influence everyday people. But I think we have a problem with what that level of accountability could theoretically look like in practice. I think that this is a tough conversation to have because of the ways that pop culture and internet culture often intersect with one another, because obviously no one is going to fight to deplatform Ariana Grande for being thinspo the way that they would fight to deplatform, say, Eugenia Cooney, because Ariana is viewed as a bit more sympathetic. She's not necessarily directly influencing people and also is perceived as having perhaps her own struggle with her body image or her mental health, whereas somebody like Eugenia is always perceived as having direct influence over their viewers and their behavior, for better or worse, whether you think that's fair or not. Whatever you think might be happening to Ariana and by extension Cynthia, I've seen people speculate over whether or not they have something called a competitive ED, where they're sort of striving to be thinner than one another. That is a conclusion to naturally come to when you're thinking about this and using your adult brain, as I mentioned earlier, which a lot of these people are not. But at a certain point, you have to question whether or not they are, you know, the chief perpetrators of the trend of aesthetic thinness, or if they're victims of it.
These two women face so much criticism from everything about them. Like, without even looking at them, people can have points of criticism. So to then introduce the topic of she is too thin, she is too pale, and leaving that all over their personal social media page is extremely unnecessary behavior, to say the least. I would like to think that the second we just take a moment to breathe and question, do we really want to post that? I feel like 9 times, if not 10 times out of 10, it's usually like, what? No. There is no benefit from me posting this.
In my mind, there is a correlation here. Thinness is now becoming more attainable, and so it's an aesthetic. I do not think that it is a bad thing to point that out, or it's taboo, and that we can't talk about it. But at the same time, I don't think it's helpful to characterize Cynthia and Ariana as the ringleaders of some insidious cult that wants to instill terrible habits into your daughters, you know what I mean? They were daughters once, and that doesn't mean that when it comes to everything that they've ever done that we have to perpetually infantilize them. I've said that before, especially when it comes to Ariana Grande. I have a whole other video on that if you haven't seen it. But I think some people's version of accountability in a situation like this is just being overly mean and burdening them with ushering in this new era of societal regression when I think that's unfair. I think they could also be viewed as victims of a system, a bigger system.
The thing about it is that when a 12-year-old girl online is making comments about a celebrity, that is their way of forming their own identity. When as adults, we take that and we go, oh no, we can still comment in that same way. We can still talk about bodies and who people are dating and people's sexualities. Like we are owed something. That is for me when it becomes less excusable. Like talking about, hey, it seems to be this culture of thinness being really superior. And you can trace that back to the rise of a lot of like diet supplements very similar to the 80s. That's different than going, okay, so here are the people who are giving people eating disorders. Number 1, Cynthia Erivo. Like, there is such a difference between making it a broad statement versus an attack is probably not the right word. It can feel like a personal attack.
My last sort of major takeaway here is that I want to hold empathy for the people that are being influenced, not specifically by Cynthia and Ariana, but just, you know, by this current culture of extreme thinness in general. Because again, I don't think making that kind of commentary on the culture is an unfair thing to point out. Celebrity stuff is big picture in a lot of ways, and the cultural trends and cycles that go on with them sort of trickle downstream to everyday people, young, impressionable people who are on the internet more and more. It's where they spend all of their social life, essentially. So I'd encourage you to think about how you can hold empathy for those folks who might not have as many resources to be able to deal with this stuff that perhaps your favorite celebrity does. If the fear is the negative influence on young people, young girls in particular, how do you keep them at the center of this problem?
I would say for all of mental health, period, we can never assume what someone is thinking, but to at least let them know that the door is open to a non-judgmental conversation can do so much, even if you don't know what the right thing to say in response is, to at least say, like, I hear you. That sounds awful that you feel and think this way about yourself. What would be helpful?
Conversation is the key. The first conversation, too, is not always going to be effective. Sometimes people are not in their own place to realize what's happening, but they will hopefully remember down the line that you were there for them in that moment.
Thank you so much for watching, you guys. Thank you to my subscribers for coming on today to talk with me about this topic. I really do appreciate it. Reminder that you can connect with me on my social media in the link tree in the description down below. Thanks so much. See you next time. Bye.